We also would propose that the language of the landscape be an absolute literal continuation of the landscape and the materials that are already found there. Granite posts and brick pavers and wooden boardwalks and granite edges, nothing, ideally it should be a seamless continuation of what we've presented. So finally that brings us to what our vision of this actually looks like. And I'll just take you through that. This is an aerial view from out over the Merrimac River, probably at about 100 feet, looking back towards Merrimac Street. You can see the boat landing, you can see the stage area from Market Landing Park. You can see significantly in the foreground that enlarged corner of the green space, where now that creates a way that you can move from the original Market Landing Park out to the water's edge, continually through green space without literally having to stay on the boardwalk and circumvent the parking. Now you've created a deep area that's occupiable by groups or individuals, but it's significantly more green space. It's in the place where the green space needs to be. In the background, framing that, you can see the ends of the two buildings that you saw on the site plan. So you can see in the center of the image back there the Firehouse Cafe and its tower, to give you a sense of the scale and that the materials and the architecture are the same. And then over the tops of those, you can see Market Square and the existing architecture of the community. And I hope what we intended to communicate in this is that it's a sort of seamless continuation of the architecture of the town, a little bit into the park, and it helps enclose it and make it a more successful public space. Looked at from the opposite viewpoint, from over Merrimac Street, looking back towards the water's edge, and you can see in the left third the boat landing. You can see in the right side of the slide the tower of the Firehouse Cafe. And what I'm trying to communicate in this image is really the continuous greenway that takes you from where we're seeing to where, almost where that red sail is. There's a much deepened sense of the green space and a more connectivity from the street, and the way the building on the left angles draws you into the site and breaks up the length and the mass of it. And then finally a view from the street level, and this would be standing at the Merrimac Street entrance to the Market Landing Park and looking out towards the boat landing. On the left, you get a snippet of the architecture, which is that traditional Newburyport architecture that has potentially a granite storefront, granite piers setting up a storefront or a retail base, a brick on the second story, and then the main roof starts, and then above the main roof you have dormers set in. It's a language of masonry and wrought iron and divided light windows. It's basic stuff. It's what Newburyport has done so well and what all the preservationists would love to protect. We're suggesting you can pick up on all of that, and you don't have to be self-conscious about reinventing anything. It's done just as well as we could do it out there. And so the other point to notice in this slide is that sense that the other building, the building on the other side of Market Landing Park, is the second building. And what I'm trying to communicate there is that these buildings are always viewed from a distance through a scrim of landscape. They're never present right on the main green space, and you'll always see that building in snippets through in the understory with the canopies of the trees obscuring the higher parts of the building. I don't know if that's as successfully communicated in this thing, but I know for the folks that were standing with me out at the stage in June, and we were looking back towards the location that we had proposed where a building might go, and I showed them, or I stated that the trees that they saw would not be touched. We would be looking through those trees towards this new development site, which is essentially sitting on the parking that currently exists now. So again, it's diffuse, it's removed, but very nicely it's helping to frame the space. So I just wanted to end here and reiterate some of the things that we think we've accomplished with this. We think the waterfront views have been preserved and framed to minimize the impact of the parking on the experience of the park. We've enhanced the connections of the downtown to the waterfront and vice versa. Main Street no longer turns it back on this exceptional asset, and as it's, we believe, done for too long. It goes a long way towards making the waterfront a year-round amenity by bringing some sort of recreational and retail and restaurant activities some distance into the park to make people want to be there during the colder months. We believe it's made a better park and a better downtown, and we think that it will, in its current configuration, our current analysis suggests that this is fiscally feasible and we can achieve all these objectives at a net revenue to the city. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Maybe it's because I'm a civil engineer's daughter, but I'm interested in what the traffic impact will be. And there is a displacement of parking, maybe. What is going to happen to those existing parking spaces? Is that going to be compensated for by the underground parking?
Thank you. That's a very good question. The city hired the same traffic consultant that worked with us on the Unified Downtown Parking Program, John Burke, and he conducted a parking analysis for us. He's providing that final analysis to us right now. But his findings are that for the majority of the year, 95 to 99% of the year, any parking that is displaced from the waterfront would be absorbed easily by the downtown, the core of the downtown area. There are a couple of days of the year, in his opinion, where there would be an impact, and those are the key events that we have, the summer events where there's lots of traffic to the downtown. Times when we already expect to have people looking for parking spaces, but you're right, there is parking underground in the buildings proposed. We've had some geotechnical analysis to confirm that as a possibility. And there is a significant amount of parking saved in the lots as was presented in the plan by reconfiguring, largely by reconfiguring what's in there, making it more efficient. As you notice on the east lot, is actually not the most efficient alignment of the spaces in there, so there's a fair amount of consolidation. In general, the city, irrespective of this project here, the city can also do a better job moving forward of managing parking in the downtown. The mayor and the city council and our department and others working over the last 2 years to get this downtown parking program gives us the tools to actually manage parking in the downtown more efficiently than we have in the past. So we'll be working with private parking folks as well to manage the parking better going forward. We have obviously had a desire as a city to have a parking consolidation into a parking facility. That is still possibly on the horizon, but that is something that would have to be done down the road, and it's not something that's needed for this project. Our parking analysis verifies that there's actually only a handful of days in the year where there's actually displacement of parking that has any effect.
My question has to do with the three buildings, the two buildings that you contemplate. I assume they will be built by private developers on land leased from the city. Is that the plan? And if so, when will this happen? And what sort of businesses do you imagine going into those ground floor spaces?
What we envision on one side, the larger area lot, is the Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center would be located on the first floor with 24/7 public bathrooms, which we are in desperate need of in the city. And that's what we need there. It makes a lot of sense to have that down there.
The plan is to issue an RFP, a request for proposals to developers. We are in the process of working through the specifics of that. The property that would be developed would be conveyed either under very long-term lease or sale. And we want to make clear that the goal would be for that private control to be as minimal as possible in terms of the amount of land that is going to be under private control, for that to be as close as possible, simply building footprints. We'll have to work through some zoning and some other regulatory issues to get towards that goal. With public control, either through outright ownership or easements or whatever is necessary for all of the public-oriented space of the expanded public green and hardscape open space and the publicly available parking, surface parking. The time frame for this is that we'll work through this request for proposals over the next month or two as a target, and then issue a request for proposals. There's a time frame for developers to respond, and then for proposals to be evaluated, and then negotiations. It often takes approximately a year from the point that you have issued an RFP to the point that you have your deal finally negotiated, and then it can take up to another year to start seeing construction. Did that cover all of your question? Or was it-